In the vastness of space, where entire civilizations rise and fall in the blink of an eye, the Galactic Dominion ruled supreme for over 3 millennia. Their military doctrine was flawless, their technology unmatched, and their confidence absolute. They had conquered 1,000 worlds using overwhelming force, massive fleets, and brute strength tactics that crushed resistance before it could even begin. But on a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system, something extraordinary was about to happen. Something that would shatter their understanding of warfare forever. It wouldn't be a massive army or advanced technology that brought the mighty Dominion to its knees. It would be one human woman with a rifle, patience, and a skill so precise it defied their comprehension of what was possible. The Dominion was about to learn that sometimes the smallest force, applied at exactly the right moment and place, can topple the mightiest empire. They were about to discover why humans had survived every extinction event their planet had thrown at them, and they were about to understand that underestimating humanity was the last mistake they would ever make. This is the story of how one sharpshooter changed the course of galactic history, and why the universe would never be the same again. The massive Dominion battlecruiser overwhelming force cast its shadow across the surface of Earth like a metallic eclipse. Admiral Crickstar stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back as he gazed down at the primitive world below. His species, the Vorthak, had evolved from pack hunters, and their military doctrine reflected this ancestry. Strike hard, strike fast, overwhelm the enemy with superior numbers and firepower. Status report, Crickstar commanded in his native tongue, the translation device immediately converting his words to galactic standard. "All invasion forces are in position, Admiral," replied his tactical officer, a chitinous insectoid creature whose compound eyes reflected the tactical displays. 73,000 ground troops, 400 heavy walkers, and complete air superiority. The humans have no chance. Crickstar allowed himself a predatory smile. The intelligence reports on humanity were laughably primitive. They still used chemical-based projectile weapons, crude vehicles that required wheels to move, and their military formations were scattered and disorganized. Most tellingly, they had no unified planetary government to coordinate resistance. It would be over in days, perhaps hours. "Begin the assault," he ordered. The first wave of Dominion dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Each ship carried 50 soldiers equipped with energy weapons, personal shields, and armor that could withstand anything these humans might throw at them. The landing zone was a strategically important valley in what the humans called the Rocky Mountains, a natural choke point that would allow the Dominion to control movement between the eastern and western portions of the continent. Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez watched the alien ships through her rifle scope from her position 3 miles away. She was hidden among the rocks and scrub brush of a mountainside, invisible to both the naked eye and most scanning equipment. Her ghillie suit had taken her 6 hours to prepare perfectly for this terrain, and she had been in position since before dawn. Elena was 32 years old, a veteran of 3 tours in Afghanistan and 2 in Syria. She held the military record for longest confirmed kill shot at 2,847 meters, though she had made shots even longer that couldn't be officially verified. More importantly, she understood something that the aliens clearly didn't. Patience wasn't just a virtue in her profession. It was the difference between life and death. The Dominion forces landed with typical, overwhelming force tactics. Dropships disgorged hundreds of soldiers who immediately began establishing a perimeter using standard military doctrine. They moved in formation, covered each other's advances, and set up heavy weapons in prepared positions. It was textbook stuff, the kind of thing taught in military academies across the galaxy. But Elena wasn't watching the soldiers. She was watching the commanders. Through her scope, she identified 3 distinct groups of aliens. The tall, 4-armed ones seemed to be giving orders. The insectoid creatures were operating technical equipment. The third group, covered in thick fur and built like bears, were clearly the heavy assault troops. The 4-armed ones had to be the officers. Elena had learned long ago that cutting off the head of the snake was more effective than trying to fight the whole body. In Afghanistan, taking out enemy commanders had often ended firefights before they really began. The principle should work just as well on aliens. She selected her target, a 4-armed alien standing near what was obviously a command post. He was wearing more elaborate armor than the others and had several subordinates reporting to him. Perfect. The distance was 2,100 meters. There was a crosswind from the west at approximately 8 miles per hour. The target was moving, but in a predictable pattern. Elena adjusted her breathing, calculated the lead time, and gently squeezed the trigger. The .338 Lapua Magnum. Round traveled at 2,950 feet per second. It took exactly 2.3 seconds to reach the target. The alien commander's head snapped back as the bullet punched through what the aliens had assumed was impenetrable armor, and he dropped instantly. Elena was already adjusting her aim for a second shot before the first alien hit the ground. The Dominion forces reacted exactly as she expected. Instead of taking cover and trying to locate the threat, they clustered around their fallen commander, making themselves perfect targets. Elena put down 2 more officers before they finally started to scatter. But by then, the damage was done. Without their commanders, the highly disciplined alien formations began to fall apart. The insectoid creatures were chattering frantically into communication devices, trying to establish new command authority. The bear-like soldiers were looking around in confusion, waiting for orders that weren't coming. Elena shifted position, moving to a second prepared hide 300 meters away. She had prepared 6 different positions throughout the mountain, all with pre-calculated ranges to key points in the valley. It was a lesson she had learnt the hard way in Syria. Never fire more than 3 shots from the same position. From her new position, she could see the aliens beginning to organize again. A new commander had taken charge, and they were starting to spread out into a more defensive formation. They had also begun using some kind of scanning equipment, sweeping the mountainsides in search of the hidden sniper. Elena waited. Patience was her greatest weapon, and the aliens clearly didn't understand it. They were used to fast, decisive battles. The longer this dragged on, the more they would make mistakes. After 20 minutes, the aliens had reorganized and were beginning to advance up the mountain. They moved in small groups, using their personal shields and scanning constantly. It was actually good tactics, Elena had to admit. But they were still thinking like conventional forces. She let them get within 800 meters before taking her next shot. This time she targeted the alien carrying the scanning equipment. The device exploded in a shower of sparks and alien blood, and the creature carrying it dropped. Without their scanners, the search became much more difficult. But Elena had made a mistake. The muzzle flash from her rifle had given away her approximate position, and the aliens were now concentrating their search on her area of the mountain. Energy blasts began searing the rocks around her as they fired at anything that might be a hiding spot. Time to move again. Elena crawled to her third position, taking care to stay below the ridgeline. The aliens were good. She had to give them that. They were adapting to her tactics faster than human enemies typically did, but they still didn't understand the fundamental principle of mountain warfare. The sniper didn't have to win quickly. She just had to not lose. From her third position, Elena could see that reinforcements were arriving. More dropships were landing in the valley, bringing fresh troops and equipment. But she could also see something else. The aliens were getting frustrated. Their body language was becoming more agitated, their formations less disciplined. Frustration led to mistakes. And mistakes led to opportunities. Elena settled in to wait. The sun was beginning to set, and darkness would soon give her an even greater advantage. The aliens had night vision equipment, but Elena knew these mountains like her own backyard. She had grown up here, hunting deer and elk with her grandfather. Every rock, every tree, every shadow was familiar to her. As night fell, the aliens made their biggest mistake yet. They brought in artificial lighting, illuminating their positions like beacons in the darkness. Elena could pick out targets clearly while remaining completely hidden in the shadows. She began a systematic campaign of terror. 1 shot every 15 minutes, always from a different position. She targeted officers, equipment operators, and anyone who seemed to be coordinating the alien forces. Each shot was followed by 20 minutes of careful movement to a new position, then patient waiting for the next opportunity. By midnight, the Dominion forces were in complete disarray. They had lost 8 commanders, most of their scanning equipment, and several key technical specialists. The remaining troops were huddled behind defensive barriers, afraid to move in the open. What had been planned as a quick occupation had turned into a nightmare siege. Admiral Crickstar received the reports from the surface with growing disbelief. A single enemy combatant was holding up his entire invasion force. It was impossible. It went against everything he knew about warfare and tactics. "How many humans are there?" he demanded. "Intelligence suggests it's only 1, Admiral," his tactical officer replied nervously. "All the attacks have come from different positions, but the timing and methodology suggest a single operator. One human is doing this to my forces? It appears so, Admiral. The humans called this type of combatant a sniper. They specialize in long-range precision attacks and concealment." Crickstar's forearms began to twitch with agitation. His species had conquered worlds with billions of inhabitants. They had faced armies equipped with advanced technology and disciplined military formations. But they had never encountered anything like this. "Send in the heavy assault team," he ordered. "Have them sweep the entire mountain range. Kill everything that moves. But even as he gave the order, Crickstar felt a cold certainty settling in his stomach. This human, this sniper, had already demonstrated the ability to remain hidden while picking off his forces at will. Sending more troops would only give her more targets. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Crickstar was beginning to understand that overwhelming force might not be enough. The humans, despite their primitive technology, might actually understand something about warfare that the Dominion had never learned. On the mountainside, Elena checked her ammunition supply. She had started the day with 60 rounds of .338 Leipur Magnum. She had fired 18 shots with 17 confirmed hits. 42 rounds remaining. She settled into her next position and began to wait. The aliens would probably send more troops soon, and she would be ready for them. This was going to be a long night, but she had spent longer nights in worse places. Besides, she was fighting for her home now, and Elena Vasquez had never lost a fight when she was fighting for something that mattered. The war was just beginning, and the Galactic Dominion was about to learn their first hard lesson about humanity. Sometimes, one person with the right skills and determination could change everything. The aliens thought they understood warfare. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Dawn broke over the Rocky Mountains with the kind of clear, cold light that Elena had always loved. Growing up here, she had watched countless sunrises from these peaks while hunting with her grandfather. He had taught her that patience and respect for the land were more important than any weapon. She never imagined those lessons would one day be used against an alien invasion force. 12 hours had passed since the first Dominion landing. Elena had fired 31 shots and scored 29 confirmed hits. More importantly, she had completely disrupted the aliens' operational timeline. What should have been a quick, decisive victory had turned into a grinding stalemate that was tying up resources Admiral Crickstar needed for other objectives across the planet. But Elena knew the situation was about to change. Through her rifle scope, she could see massive reinforcements arriving in the valley. The aliens had brought in specialized equipment she didn't recognize, along with what appeared to be an entirely different type of soldier. These new aliens moved differently than the others, more like predators than the disciplined formation she had been fighting. Her encrypted radio crackled to life. Ghost 7, this is Control. What's your status? Elena keyed her radio without taking her eye off the scope. Control, this is Ghost 7. Still in position. Enemy has brought in reinforcements. Estimated battalion strength. New equipment types unknown capabilities. Copy, Ghost 7. We're tracking similar landings worldwide. Your actions in the valley have bought us time to organize resistance. Military assets are being repositioned, but we need you to maintain pressure for at least another 24 hours. Understood. Control. Ghost 7 out. Helena switched off the radio and focused on the valley below. 24 more hours. She could do that, but only if she stayed smart and lucky. Her ammunition was running low, and the aliens were clearly adapting to her tactics. The new alien soldiers were moving up the mountain in a completely different formation. Instead of the disciplined, predictable patterns she had been exploiting, these moved like hunters. They were splitting up, using natural cover, and advancing on multiple vectors simultaneously. Elena recognized the behavior because she had seen it before in herself and other elite soldiers. They had sent specialists to hunt her. Elena carefully moved to her fifth prepared position, a natural cave formation she had discovered during her childhood explorations. The cave provided excellent concealment and multiple exit routes, but it also limited her fields of fire. It was a defensive position, which meant the initiative was shifting to her enemies. Through the cave opening, she could see the specialized alien soldiers spreading across the mountainside. They moved with purpose and skill, checking hiding spots with systematic thoroughness. These weren't the standard infantry she had been fighting. These were professionals. Elena estimated 6 to 8 alien hunters in her immediate area, with more working other parts of the mountain. They were using hand signals and advanced coordination tactics. Most concerning, they seemed to understand the principles of mountain warfare. They were checking elevated positions first, working methodically through likely sniper nests. She watched them work for nearly an hour, learning their patterns and methods. The lead alien was obviously experienced, directing the others with subtle gestures and maintaining excellent tactical discipline. Elena began to feel a grudging respect for their professionalism, even as she planned their destruction. The opportunity came when the lead alien made a critical error. He exposed himself for 3 seconds while directing 2 of his subordinates toward what he must have thought was a promising hiding spot. It was a tiny mistake, the kind that happened when even the best soldiers got focused on one thing and forgot about everything else. Elena took the shot. The bullet struck the alien leader center mass, punching through his armor and dropping him instantly. The effect on his team was immediate and devastating. Without their leader's coordination, the methodical search pattern collapsed into confusion. But these aliens were more experienced than the infantry Elena had been fighting. Instead of clustering around their fallen leader, they immediately went to ground and began evasive maneuvers. Elena had perhaps 10 seconds before they located her muzzle flash and started returning fire. She used those seconds to put down 2 more aliens before the return fire forced her deeper into the cave system. Energy blasts scorched the rock around the cave entrance as the surviving alien hunters concentrated their fire on her position. Elena crawled through the narrow passage leading to the cave's back exit, a route she had mapped out during her childhood explorations. The passage was barely wide enough for her body, but it led to a completely different part of the mountain. The aliens would expect her to be trapped in the cave, not emerging 300 meters away. As she crawled, Elena could hear the aliens advancing on the cave entrance. Their communication was in their own language, but the tactical intent was universal. They were preparing to storm her position. Elena emerged from the back passage just as the aliens breached the main cave entrance. From her new position, she could see them advancing into the cave system, confident that they had her trapped. It was exactly the kind of overconfidence that got soldiers killed. She put 3 more rounds through the cave entrance before the aliens realized their mistake. By the time they fought their way back out of the cave, Elena was gone again. The aliens would locate one of her positions, advance with professional skill and caution, only to discover that Elena had already moved to a new location with a perfect view of their approach routes. Her knowledge of the terrain was proving to be an insurmountable advantage, but Elena was beginning to feel the strain. She had been in position for nearly 30 hours with only brief periods of rest. Her ammunition was down to 18 rounds, and the aliens were learning from each engagement. They were starting to anticipate her movement patterns and position backup teams to cover likely escape routes. Worse, she could see additional reinforcements arriving in the valley. The aliens were clearly committed to eliminating her, regardless of cost. Elena estimated that they now had over 2,000 troops dedicated to hunting down one human sniper. It was flattering in a way, but also deeply concerning. As evening approached, Elena made a difficult decision. She needed to break contact and relocate to an entirely different area of operations. The aliens had too many resources focused on her current position, and it was only a matter of time before they cornered her. But first, she had one more message to send. Elena moved to her final prepared position in this area of operations, a rocky outcrop with an excellent view of the alien command post in the valley. The position was exposed and couldn't be held for long, but it offered the perfect shot she needed. Through her scope, she could see Admiral Crickstar himself standing outside the command post, apparently coordinating the search efforts personally. It was an unprecedented opportunity. Elena could see at least 6 high-ranking officers gathered around tactical displays completely focused on their hunt for her. The range was 2,400 meters, well within her capabilities, but at the extreme end of her rifle's effective range. There was a variable crosswind and heat distortion from the valley floor. It would be one of the most difficult shots she had ever attempted. Elena settled into her shooting position and began her breathing sequence. She had one chance to make the shot count. Miss, and she would have to abandon this entire area of operations. Hit, and she might disrupt the alien command structure enough to buy significant time for the human resistance. The crosswind shifted, creating a momentary window of opportunity. Elena squeezed the trigger with the smooth, steady pressure that had become second nature after thousands of hours of training. The bullet's flight time was 2.8 seconds. Elena watched through her scope as the round struck Admiral Crickstar in the upper torso, spinning him around and dropping him to the ground. The alien officers around him scattered in panic, diving for cover and shouting orders in their native languages. Elena was already moving before she could confirm the kill. The shot had given away her position completely, and every alien weapon in the valley was about to start firing at her location. She had perhaps 30 seconds to get clear before the entire mountaintop was turned into a smoking crater. She ran in a controlled sprint down the back slope of the mountain, using natural cover and prepared routes she had scouted during her initial reconnaissance. Behind her, the mountain peak erupted in explosions as alien heavy weapons concentrated their fire on her former position. Elena reached her emergency cache, a supply depot she had prepared in case she needed to abandon her primary area of operations. The cache contained food, water, medical supplies, and most importantly, additional ammunition. She quickly restocked her equipment and began moving toward her secondary operational area. As she moved through the darkness, Elena's radio crackled with coded transmissions from military units across the region. The resistance was beginning to organize, using the time she had bought them to coordinate defensive operations. Her actions had proven that the aliens could be hurt, and that knowledge was spreading to human forces worldwide. But Elena also knew that her hardest challenges were yet to come. The aliens would be even more determined to eliminate her now, and they were learning to counter her tactics with each engagement. The war was entering a new phase, one where her individual actions might no longer be sufficient to affect the outcome. Still, as she settled into her new position, overlooking a different approach route into the mountains, Elena felt a grim satisfaction. She had held an entire alien invasion force for over a day, with nothing more than a rifle and knowledge of the terrain. More importantly, she had bought time for humanity to organize its response. Elena checked her new rifle scope and began ranging targets in the valley below. The aliens had established a new command post, probably thinking they were safe from sniper fire at this distance. They were about to learn that there was no such thing as a safe distance when Elena Vasquez had a clear shot. The hunt was about to begin again, and this time Elena had backup. Radio chatter indicated that other sniper teams were moving into position throughout the mountain range. The aliens had wanted to make this personal by hunting her specifically. They were about to discover that there were more humans like Elena than they had ever imagined, and all of them were very good at what they did. The Galactic Dominion was about to face the full fury of human unconventional warfare, and they were completely unprepared for what was coming. Elena smiled grimly as she settled into her new position. The aliens thought they were hunting her, but the truth was more complex. In these mountains, surrounded by the land she had grown up on, and fighting for the people she loved, Elena Vasquez wasn't the hunted. She was still the hunter. 3 days had passed since Admiral Krickstar's fall, and the Galactic Dominion's invasion of Earth had become a nightmare beyond their comprehension. What should have been a routine conquest had transformed into a grinding war of attrition that was bleeding resources from across their empire. Commander Veltar, the highest-ranking officer to survive Elena's systematic decimation of the command structure, stood in the heavily fortified bunker that now served as the Dominion's primary command post. The bunker was built 300 meters underground, surrounded by the most advanced shielding technology the Dominion possessed. After watching Elena put precision shots through armor that was supposed to be impenetrable, the surviving officers had lost all confidence in their protective equipment. "Status report," Veltar commanded, his voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who hadn't slept properly in 72 hours. "The human sniper has been joined by others," his intelligence officer reported. "We now estimate at least 40 similar operatives throughout this mountain range alone. Worldwide, our forces are encountering the same phenomenon. Individual humans with precision weapons are causing casualties far out of proportion to their numbers." Veltar studied the tactical displays with growing horror. Red markers indicated confirmed sniper positions across the planet. Each marker represented a single human who was tying up hundreds of Dominion soldiers, disrupting supply lines, and eliminating key personnel. The pattern was repeating on every continent, in every type of terrain. "How is this possible?" Veltar asked. "Our intelligence indicated that humans had no unified military structure, no advanced technology, no capacity for coordinated resistance." "That intelligence was correct, Commander," the officer replied nervously. "These humans aren't operating under central command. They're acting independently, using only their primitive projectile weapons and knowledge of local terrain. But somehow they're achieving strategic effects that our models said were impossible." On her mountainside, Elena was teaching that lesson in real time. She had been joined by Master Sergeant Mike Chen, a Marine Corps sniper instructor who had driven 18 hours from Camp Pendleton when word of the invasion reached him. With Elena's intimate knowledge of the local terrain and Mike's expertise in advanced sniper tactics, they had created a nightmare for any alien forces attempting to operate in the mountains. "Target 11 o'clock, 1,600 meters," Elena whispered into her throat microphone. "Officer type, directing search pattern." "I see him," Mike responded from his position 400 meters away. "You take the shot, I'll cover your withdrawal." Elena settled into her firing position and took the shot. The alien dropped instantly, and the search pattern dissolved into confusion just as it had dozens of times before. But this time, the aliens tried a new tactic. Instead of clustering around their fallen leader, they immediately began suppressive fire on all likely sniper positions. "They're learning," Elena observed as energy blasts scorched the rocks around her position. "Better reaction time, better tactics." "Doesn't matter," Mike replied. "They're still thinking like conventional forces. Watch this." Mike had positioned himself with a clear shot at the aliens' heavy weapons team. As they concentrated their fire on Elena's position, he took out the weapon operator with a single shot from his .50 caliber Barrett rifle. The aliens' suppressive fire stopped abruptly, and Elena was able to withdraw safely. Nice shooting, Marine, Elena said as they regrouped at their cache position.
You too, Army, Mike replied with professional respect.
Your grandfather teach you to shoot like that? Eleanor nodded. Every summer, from age 8 to 18, he always said that patience and precision would serve me better than speed and volume. Never thought I'd be using those lessons against aliens. Their radio crackled with a priority transmission. All sniper teams, this is Mountain Control. We're receiving reports that the aliens are preparing something big. Massive troop buildup in your sector, estimated division strength. They're bringing in heavy armor and air support. Elena and Mike exchanged glances. A full division was nearly 20,000 soldiers, plus support equipment. Even with their tactical advantages, 2 snipers couldn't hope to stop that kind of force. Understood, Control, Elena responded. Request permission to expand target priorities. We're going to need to get creative. In the Dominion bunker, Commander Veltar was authorizing the very escalation Elena had predicted. Deploy the Annihilation Division, he ordered. Complete saturation bombardment of the entire mountain range. I don't care if we have to turn every peak into glass. These human snipers end today. The Annihilation Division was the Dominion's solution to stubborn resistance. 20,000 elite soldiers supported by orbital bombardment platforms and atmospheric fighters. They had used similar forces to crack fortified worlds that had resisted conventional assault. No enemy had ever survived their deployment. But as the massive alien force began moving into the mountains, they were walking into a trap that Elena and her fellow snipers had been preparing for 3 days. Elena had spent those days doing more than just shooting alien officers. She had been studying the Dominion's tactical doctrine, learning their patterns and weaknesses. More importantly, she had been sharing that knowledge with every human sniper team in the region. The aliens always advanced in the same formations. They always established command posts in the same relative positions. They always used the same communication protocols. Most critically, they always relied on overwhelming force and superior technology to win their battles. Against human conventional forces, those tactics worked perfectly. Against snipers who understood the terrain and had no intention of fighting fair, they were disasters waiting to happen. As the Annihilation Division entered the mountain passes, they found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't understand. Sniper teams positioned throughout the peaks began a coordinated campaign of precision strikes that targeted not just personnel, but the aliens' entire operational capability. Elena took out communications equipment with shots that shouldn't have been possible. Mike destroyed vital components on armored vehicles from ranges that defied the aliens' understanding of projectile weapons. Other teams targeted fuel supplies, ammunition depots, and command vehicles with surgical precision. But the real genius of the human strategy became apparent when the aliens tried to respond with orbital bombardment. Elena had positioned her teams so that any bombardment of sniper positions would also destroy the aliens' own ground forces. The Dominion found themselves unable to use their most powerful weapons without inflicting massive casualties on their own troops. "This is impossible!" Veltar raged as reports of the disaster flooded into his command bunker. "How are they doing this? How are primitive humans outfighting the most advanced military force in the galaxy?" His tactical officer was studying the engagement reports with growing amazement. "Commander, I think I'm beginning to understand. These humans aren't trying to win a conventional battle. They're not trying to hold territory or destroy our forces through direct engagement." "Then what are they doing?" "They're teaching us a lesson. Every action they take demonstrates a principle of warfare that we've never encountered. Individual initiative over mass coordination, precision over overwhelming force, patience over speed, knowledge of terrain over technological advantage." Veltar stared at the officer in disbelief. "You're saying that this is educational?" "In a sense, yes. They're showing us that our entire military doctrine has fundamental flaws. We've conquered 1,000 worlds by bringing superior force and technology to bear against organized resistance. But these humans aren't organized in any way we understand, and they're not resisting in any conventional sense." On the mountainside, Elena was proving that analysis correct. She had moved to a position overlooking the main alien supply route, a narrow pass that funneled all of their logistics through a single choke point. For the past 6 hours, she had been systematically destroying every supply convoy that attempted to use the route. The aliens had tried everything. They sent the convoys through at night, but Elena's night vision equipment gave her a clear advantage in darkness. They provided massive escorts, but Elena simply targeted the escort commanders and watched the formations collapse. They even tried using decoy convoys, but Elena could tell the difference between loaded and empty vehicles from 2 kilometers away. "Go 7, this is Mountain Control. Satellite intelligence indicates the aliens are preparing to withdraw from your sector. Repeat, enemy appears to be conducting fighting withdrawal. Alina couldn't hide her amazement. Control. Did you say withdraw? Confirm that. Confirmed. Ghost 7. Enemy forces are consolidating at their landing zones and appear to be preparing for extraction. You've done something unprecedented. You've made the Dominion retreat. But Elena knew it was more than just her actions. Throughout the engagement, she had been in contact with sniper teams worldwide. The same pattern was repeating everywhere humans had put precision shooters in the field. Individual snipers working with minimal support and using knowledge of local terrain were systematically dismantling invasion forces that should have been unstoppable. In the Dominion bunker, Commander Veltar was receiving similar reports from across the planet. Human snipers had turned every major engagement into a nightmare of precision fire and invisible enemies. Dominion casualties were approaching levels that made the invasion economically unsustainable. Commander, his intelligence officer reported, I'm receiving a transmission from the human military. They're offering to negotiate. Veltar was so exhausted and demoralized that he almost laughed. They want to negotiate? After what they've done to us? Sir, I think we should listen to what they have to say. Our current tactical situation is untenable. The transmission came through on standard diplomatic channels. The voice was female, speaking in accented galactic standard. Dominion Commander, this is Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez, representing the human resistance. I believe we need to talk. Veltar stared at the communication device in disbelief. The voice belonged to a single human soldier, the same sniper who had been terrorizing his forces for days. She was speaking as if she had the authority to negotiate on behalf of her entire planet. You're one soldier, Veltar replied. You don't speak for your government. Commander, with respect, I don't think you understand how humanity works. Elena responded, I don't need government authorization to defend my home. None of us do. Every sniper team on this planet is operating independently, using our own judgment and initiative. We're not following orders from some central command, we're just doing what needs to be done. Veltar felt a chill of recognition. This was exactly what his intelligence officer had tried to explain. These humans weren't organized in any way the Dominion understood, but they were somehow coordinating their efforts anyway. What do you want? He asked. We want you to leave, Elena replied simply. Pack up your forces and go find some other planet to conquer, because if you stay here, we're going to keep doing exactly what we've been doing. And, Commander, there are a lot more of us than you think. You're bluffing. You can't possibly have enough trained snipers to threaten our entire invasion force. Elena's laugh carried clearly through the communication system. Commander, you still don't understand. We're not just snipers. We're hunters, recreational shooters, competitive marksmen, law enforcement officers, military veterans, and anyone else who grew up learning to put bullets exactly where we want them. In the United States alone, there are over 70 million people who own firearms. Most of them learned to shoot the same way I did, from family members who understood that precision and patience are more important than fancy equipment. The implications of Elena's words hit Veltar like a physical blow. The Dominion intelligence reports had focused on organized military forces and government structures. They had completely missed the fact that individual humans possessed military-relevant skills and were willing to use them independently. Even if that's true, Veltar said, you can't possibly coordinate that many people. We don't need to coordinate them, Commander. That's what you're not understanding. Give us a common threat and we'll organize ourselves. We don't need permission from our governments or orders from our military. We just need someone to point out the targets. Elena was right, and Veltar knew it. The human resistance wasn't a conventional military force that could be defeated through superior firepower and technology. It was something the Dominion had never encountered. An entire population of individuals who were willing and able to fight back using their own initiative and resources. What guarantee do we have that you'll honor any agreement? Veltar asked. The same guarantee you have with any predator, Commander. Leave us alone, and we'll leave you alone. Keep threatening us, and we'll keep hunting you. It's really that simple. Veltar looked around his bunker at the exhausted, demoralized officers who represented the survivors of the most elite invasion force in Dominion history. 3 days of fighting against human snipers had taught them more about warfare than 3 centuries of conquering organized civilizations. Very well, he said finally. We'll withdraw our forces. Smart choice, Commander, Elena replied. And, Commander, you might want to spread the word to the rest of your empire. Humanity isn't interested in conquering anyone or building some galactic empire. We just want to be left alone. But if someone decides to threaten our homes, they're going to discover that we're very good at fighting back. The transmission ended, leaving Veltar staring at the communication device. In 3 days, a single human with a rifle had taught the Galactic Dominion a lesson that would reshape their understanding of warfare forever. 6 months later, the Dominion Council issued Imperial Directive 1157. All human-occupied systems were classified as strategically non-essential and placed on the permanent exclusion list for military operations. The directive noted that while humans posed no threat to Dominion interests, they had demonstrated capabilities that made invasion economically unfeasible. Elena never learned about the directive. She had returned to her job as a shooting instructor at the local police academy, where she taught the same lessons her grandfather had taught her: patience, precision, and respect for the craft of marksmanship. But sometimes, when she was teaching a new student how to make that perfect shot, Elena would smile and think about the day she taught the most advanced military force in the galaxy that individual human beings, fighting for their homes with nothing more than rifles and determination, could change the course of history. The universe had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their willingness to stand up as individuals and fight for what mattered to them, using whatever skills and resources they possessed. And that was a lesson the Galactic Dominion would never forget.